started so I won't forget it.
Well, happy election day.
Yeah. I'm happy that some of it's going to be over with, hopefully after today. And um, I'm tired of getting all that mess on my phone, and um,
I know.
I'm just tired of all of it. I'm ready. I'm ready to move on and pray for the best for all of us. So that's all we can do.
Oh, yeah. I'll have to watch the returns come in. Probably start watching about 9 o'clock to see what my status is, but it is what it is.
Okay,
Look,
that's
I don't
right.
get too concerned.
That's right. You're on the ballot, aren't you?
I am on the ballot.
Okay. The students may not know that, Dr. Revis. Tell them before we get started how it runs in your county.
Okay, well, in Henderson County, where I live and where I worked for the majority of my educational career, I ran for the school board, and currently on the school board right now. This is my second term if I win today, and so there are 4 seats available. Last November, our county commissioners went to the state and requested that our elections for school board be partisan. And none of the school board members knew that they were going to go make that request. And so the state allowed that. And so now, if you run for school board in our district, um, you have to run a primary. If there are more candidates than there are seats, you have to do a primary. And if you're independent, um, you have to collect, I can't even tell you how many live wet signatures you have to collect in order to get on the ballot. So it's really changed the political complexion of our school system as far as the school board is concerned. But, being a teacher, you probably not that impacted by school board members, but when you become a principal, that will be something that you will watch, and you will want to make sure that you have education advocates on your school board. So
And they'll have
that's where
some
I am.
opportunities to, if they haven't, to experience, what that looks like, with some of the clinical work that they'll be doing before the program's over with. So
Right.
unless it changes, some of that will happen in 603 next semester. So
Oh, that's great.
that's
That's
it. So
great.
it's a part of the law and finance part of it.
Yeah.
So, but that's it. Well, Dr. Revis, it's time to get started. If you would, I'm gonna share and just pull up the agenda, but you can go ahead and bring greetings to the class.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to week 10. And it's just really hard for me to believe it's already in November, and that we are beginning our week 10. And
It's week 11,
oh,
I
I'm
think.
sorry, week 11. I'm sorry. We're
And
at
I
week
I
11.
I had
Goodness.
I had it on that agenda that I sent you earlier, but I corrected it
Okay.
on.
Well, we're even farther along than I thought, but I know you've been busy this semester, extremely busy, and you, I think, will be pleased at how things will start slowing down for you in the next several weeks. But um, we don't do 15 full weeks of work. You will have things that will be due up until the last week, but not any of the things like what you're doing right now. So, anyway, welcome, and let's get started. Let's talk about AAPTEL Task 2. Dr. Stedman, I had some really, really good Task 2s.
I did too, Dr. Revis. Very pleased.
I There were several, the most I've ever had, that I said I gave a 52 and said consider your peer feedback. And when I say that, folks, that's why I'm very serious about that, because I don't worry about a lot of the fine details of your grammar and punctuation. I try to look at APA, but I may not, if it's just, a rarity that you have an APA glitch. I don't say anything to you about it, because I assume your peer reviewers are doing that. kind of detail. But I do want to emphasize the importance of peer reviews. Guys, when we get to this point, it is really difficult to try to find things to help people improve, but there's always room for improvement. When you become a principal, some of the most difficult people that you will have to evaluate and give feedback on are some of your best teachers. And they want feedback. They want quality feedback. And you may think you're being picky with it, but it's not. It helps them grow. Even if you have to be picky, I want those peer reviews to keep up with the depth and the level of detail that we saw back when we were working with the APSL. Some of you got a little slack on me last time, so I just wanted to put that plug in. Um, so many of you in your task two, and we didn't tell you not to do this. I usually do, and I didn't. You guys went ahead when you identified some gaps with your PLC, you went ahead and identified some possible strategies. Now, if you did that, I'm not going to make you take it out, but make sure that you carry those identified gaps and possible strategies over to your growth plan that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Revis. I did want to point out, for the most part, that I would say 90% or more, 95% of the peer reviews are truly some of the best that we've ever had. Um, I'm going to pick on Stuart for just a second. Stuart will tell you he knows I read them because I find Stuart is full of little um, nuggets. He embeds nuggets in his work. He has a flair for doing that. But and I think you caught my remark back, right, Stuart, on the one that you did this time. But Stuart, he made a comment on one of his. He said I can't find. It's hard to find anything, but he did an excellent job still going back and addressing everything comprehensively, um, putting humor in there, but and that's what you have to do, because my comment back to him was, I think it was Stuart that I said this to, was that when you become a principal, that you're going to have a lot of teachers that you're going to have to provide feedback, and they deserve feedback, and they're going to be just like some of the work that's coming in. You're going to have to look hard to find areas for improvement. And it's good when you can, but it's an opportunity to really spend the time to talk about all of the great things they do. And that's what it should be anyway. It shouldn't be something punitive. It should be constructive feedback, but then always look for great opportunities to accentuate those positive things that you see. And Dr. Evans, I think overall your students and mine as well, because I was able to look at some of yours, during the time of the storm. I think that they've done a great job, focusing on that and really pointing out and accentuating the strengths, really the strengths. And a good administrator, you don't automatically start out in a conference with somebody, well, I don't like this, I don't like the negative. You always try to find the positives to talk about first, and then you lead into areas, for improvement. And as a reminder, when you're conferencing with a teacher, many times you don't even have to identify it. Sometimes after you talk about all the positive things, it's a good thing to say, um, what are some of the challenges that you're facing? What are some areas that you feel like that you possibly would like to improve in? And more times than not, that will open the door for you to do what you have to do without you having to say it up front. So, just remember that tidbit of information.
Yeah, and I'd like to piggyback on that if I could.
Sure.
Some of your most effective teachers, they have the art of real, true self-reflection. and they're harder on themselves than you would ever be. And many times your weaker teachers have a hard time really reflecting on what is happening in their classroom or how effective they are. So that's kind of the pattern that I've always seen. I like to always start out and just ask them, like Dr. Stedman said, what do you want to work on, or what do you wish had gone differently? If you could do that class over again, what would you do differently? Many times your weak teachers can't even tell you what they would do differently. And I think the key there in working with beginning teachers, not necessarily weak teachers, but beginning teachers or teachers who have a lot of growth, is not to overwhelm them with too many things at once, and giving them, trying to think like you would, like a doctor would. If I could fix one thing, that could I fix that would have the most impact on their teaching? And you need to spend a lot of time in truly good feedback. We know the research is there about when we give formative, effective feedback to students, it will increase student learning. I believe, and I'm sure it's been proven, that would be a good dissertation if it's not. I believe that when we as administrators give effective feedback to our teachers, it will make and help them grow to their potential as well. So don't ever skip or skim over the power of effective feedback.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Revis. And I do want to say that, as it relates to task two of the APTEL, um, the direction, pretty overall, the directions were followed as they were supposed to be. I like the way your analysis, you put good graphics in there for task two, um, and multiple in there, and they all aligned. I like the fact that um, they did a great job, Dr. Revis, talking about their walkthrough experiences. Um, Several of mine went over and beyond, what we had said, and had uh, interviews with principals, others that do walkthroughs through the school, and commented on that. Those were really positives, and did a great job, with the survey. Did a great job just analyzing that and really honing in on what they feel like are the needs of the school. Um, and that's what the plan of action is going to be. Your growth plan will be honing in on those things. And again, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but when you get to your presentation, you do that the same way that we talked about the you know with your feedback to teachers. You do the same way. You start out your presentation talking about the strengths of your survey, the strengths of your school, accentuate all those positives, and then it allows you to lead in, however, in our survey, in the research or whatever, we do have areas for that need continuous uh, improvement, and that's where you lead into your discussion with them. But always, when you can, start out with the positives. Look at this is the agenda. Um, it's short but comprehensive. Um, in a moment, we're going to talk about the AAPTEL Research and Development Zoom assignment as it relates to where you are. Um, then we're going to go back over AAPTEL Task 3 like we didn't do it last week because we need to focus on that. We'll have a question and answer time. And then I want you to look at what we have mapped out at the bottom of this. This actually is going to show you what is due this week, and notice for your responsibilities this week, the APTEL Task 2 that that we've just talked about. Remember that no later than Sunday of this week, it needs to be put in the assignment Dropbox. But if you finished it, you've done all the corrections that you need to make, go ahead and get it to us, get it over with. And then we gave you an extension on the research and development Zoom assignment, and that is going to be due this week. Now, I want you to note, and I'll get to a place on it. Note the AAPTEL Task 3 draft, that it says it in the schedule of events, but it's no longer in your calendar. It is not due this Sunday. As we said, it's due to Blackboard no later than 6 p.m. on 11/13, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. And your AAPTEL Task 3 peer reviews are due at a different time as well. So please note that originally they were on the schedule for this week. They are not this week. Remember, we said we were going to give you an extension on that. Then let's look at week 12. That's next week. Not this week, but next week. Your AAPTEL Task 3 will be due to assignment Dropbox, and the times are different. It's not going to be all on Sunday, and we'll talk about that. And then your AAPTEL Task 4 that we'll talk about next Tuesday will be due at the end of week 12 as well, and those are the remaining 9 competencies. And then your AAPTEL Task 4, it'll be in for, we'll have to get it for review on one day that week, and then it'll be due, by the end of the week for a final grade. Remember, when you get to Task 4, there are no peer reviews. You only have 2 more peer reviews to do, and that's with Task 3 that you'll be working on this week. Then I want you to note week 13 is going to be an opportunity for you to work on the AAPTEL competency and internship work independently. We're going to talk about this next week so that you'll know what to do. We're giving you some time to catch up and to do what you need to do. And then we'll introduce the case study next week that you'll have to do as well during that week. And these, again, we sent this to you, but I want to talk about the changes. I just simply put in what was due this past Sunday and what was due today as far as your peer reviews is concerned. But let's look at this week. Again, what is due this Sunday? The AAPTEL Research and Development Zoom activity that Dr. Revis is going to talk about in just a moment. And then your AAPTEL Task 2 final. What is due on the 13th? Notice the 10th is on Sunday. The 13th is on Wednesday. We have class on Tuesday. Nothing is due to us on Tuesday, but on that Wednesday, because we've given you an extension, Task 3 is going to be due for peer and instructor review on that Wednesday. And remember, the extension was so that you can go ahead and schedule on that Monday and Tuesday, or on that Wednesday, if you need that Wednesday, schedule your presentation. That gives you plenty of time to get all the work done, to have your present, so you'll be able to submit everything at one. There's no excuses not to have everything submitted for peer and instructor review on the 13th for AAPTEL Task 3. Then that's on that Wednesday. By that Friday, you must have your peer reviews done. That's on the 15th. And then that following, that Sunday, the 17th, you will submit the AAPTEL Task 3 final, and you will submit the AAPTEL Task 4 for peer and instructor review. And then the last thing with the AAPTEL work is on the 19th. Now notice that's the 17th, that's Sunday. The 19th is on a Tuesday. That's AAPTEL Task 4 final is due. And so by the 19th, all AAPTEL tasks should be completed. Okay? So this is for you to follow. Any questions about the changes in the schedule? And it's in your calendar. It's updated in Dr. Revis's calendar and in my calendar. So those dates are in there now. If you look at your calendar, that's what you need to follow. Okay? Any questions? Dr. Evans, I'm going to stop share right now. And
Okay.
if you would, at this stage, Dr. Evans, since we've given them an extension on this and where they are, what do you think? What should we see or what should happen when they come together as a Zoom team to do the APTEL Research and Development Zoom assignment at this point?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna scroll down just to remind you where it is. It's under let me see if I can get there. Under the syllabus policy and other course information. It's where you upload all, it's way down at the very bottom,
Go to
guys.
your assignments,
Yeah,
assignments for grade.
right.
There it
Let's
is.
see, right here. Research development. So, we're assuming this task assumes that you have done task 1 and 2. Now, again, many of you started talking about solutions in task 2, which is fine. But you need to take your gaps and make sure that you are addressing those in your task 3. But this is about task 1 and 2. I guess you could talk about possible solutions, but what I really want you to hone in on is, what did the research say, and how does that compare to what you found in your school? So it's a discussion about task 1 and 2. Um, Everybody needs to have an opportunity to be the Zoom master. So if you have not been a Zoom master, you can go ahead and volunteer to do that. We will have one more opportunity after this, and it's a case study. So if you want to go ahead and get that out of the way, the Zoom master needs to create an agenda. There are not any discussion prompts here. You can create that agenda collaboratively, and or you can create the agenda as a Zoom master and share it out with everyone before the Zoom so they will know what you're going to discuss and how. You need to create a way by which you are going to share information, and this is particularly necessary if you have a Zoom team of 4 or more. You need to have an order established in which you take turns. Be sure that your camera is on and that your name is showing in your camera so we can make sure that we are attributing comments to the correct person. And so after you do that, your assignment is threefold. You must participate in the Zoom meeting. Now, Zoom masters, you've got to find a meeting time that everyone in which everyone's available. You need to try to make yourself available and come to a consensus, and don't let that be a drawn out large thing to do. And then you turn in a 1-page reflection of the meeting with an emphasis on your 3 big takeaways from the meeting. And this is to be submitted for a grade. And also, you will submit your Zoom link. Okay? I expect you to talk about some research. Everybody should be talking about research that you have done in task 1 and how that research aligns or doesn't align to what you found in your surveys and walkthroughs. Okay? You just can't talk about your surveys and your walkthroughs. You have to talk about research.
Dr. Revis, after they've done all of that, if they have a few minutes, do you think it would be wise for the Zoom master to say, now, as you're moving into task 3, do you have anything that you would like to discuss with the group that a concern that you have, or you know do you think that would be an opportunity for them to help each other out and maybe how to get started if they're having a problem getting started?
Of course. Now, I noticed a lot of my students, Dr. Stedman, they had a lot of gaps. Um, You need to address your gaps in your growth plan. Don't leave them hanging. Um, you're the most common ones are that teachers don't feel that they're involved in the budget. That's a very common gap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, More times than not, principals will invite teachers uh, to interviews. Now, sometimes that becomes a little bit tricky in the summertime when you can't get everybody together, but sometimes that's a gap. Another place that we see gaps are that teachers don't feel they've had input on professional development. And a lot of that is a result of a lot of district mandated professional development and not a lot of time to do school selected staff development, but you need to address your gaps in your growth plan. And I know somebody's going to want to know how many gaps do I put in? And Dr. Stedman's going to talk us through that growth plan here in a minute. So we'll save those questions until he gets through that.
Well,
But make sure there's a clear connection between your last paragraph, gap analysis, and what you do in your growth plan for task 3. Any
okay,
questions on the Zoom assignment?
okay,
Okay.
okay. And again, my suggestion is uh, go ahead and do that sooner than later. Go ahead and plan that sooner. Later, it'll help you, and you need to get that off your plate. Okay. Um, let's go back to the share. And Dr. Revis said that I was going to do this. Dr. Revis is going to help me with this.
Okay.
We work as a team, so we're gonna do this together. Let me pull up the helpful hints. This is the same thing that we showed you. Uh, Dr. Revis, Shaquana has a question.
Okay, Shaquana.
Hey everyone. I may have missed this or didn't understand. Say that the last Zoom, the one with the case study is the last one for the peer reviews. I mean peer teams.
Yeah,
You haven't,
that'll be the last one, but that'll be that we'll talk about that next week, Shaquana.
yeah.
Okay.
You'll have two case studies, Shaquana.
Right. I guess my reasoning for asking that is we have more like in our group we have myself and another person that has not been the Zoom master. So would we be able to split that time or how does that work?
Yes. You if that's the case, then y'all work it out so that you collaborate so that there's leadership being shown with whoever's left on your team that has not had an opportunity to do something. Yeah.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
there's two opportunities. Remember, you've got this activity that we just talked about, and then you've got the case study. So there are two more opportunities for people. So team, y'all work that out, okay?
Okay.
And
Thank
give
you.
good. This is exactly what we showed you last week. This is task 3, and task 3 is a culmination of all the work that you did in task 1 and task 2. And as a reminder again, remember in task 1, remember all of the questions you had to answer, and they were research based. This is what the research says. And then when you went to task 2, remember you had the same questions or prompts, and you had to address um, based on what it looked like in your school: teacher, leadership, and empowerment in the classroom, and teacher leadership and empowerment outside the classroom. And remember, you determined all of that, as Dr. Revis has already emphasized, you determined that with your walkthroughs, you determined that with your survey. That's predominantly where you gathered your information. Then some of you interviewed and you pulled information, other information together, but that's predominantly where you got that information. And from what the research says, and what you found in task 2, that's where the gaps that Dr. Revis, so that's where your gaps came from. Now, what have you got to do? You got to address those gaps. That's the whole purpose of task 3. You've got to address the gaps. And remember, it's all about teacher leadership and teacher empowerment inside the classroom and outside the classroom. The presentation you've got to present to your school administration and to the school improvement team. And remember, we said that if your school improvement team is not available, if you can't, you really need to push that. But if it's not, remember what we told you. We said that your PLC, you pull a team of people and you name it your school improvement team, okay? But so when you write this up, you need to use the language school improvement team in your presentation. Okay, that's not cheating. That's just improvising, based on what you do and do not have control of. It's highly recommended that this presentation is recorded. Highly recommended. Ask permission to do that, and you put the link in there. But remember, with your presentation, if you do a PowerPoint, and I'm using that because that's the easiest one to do, when you report out and you show your work for task 3, remember you need to show what that presentation looks like, the frames. You can put the recorded link in there, but we need to see the frames, and your evaluator is going to need to see those frames and narrative work about what that presentation, what it looked like. What did they have to say? What did your administration have to say? So again, these are the 10 areas that you're going to address. They're non-negotiable. Dr. Revis, if you would just, and again, we've gone over this and they've got the examples, but let's talk about let's talk about how does it start? So should it start out? How should this work start out for the growth plan?
Well, I always like to say, start out task 3 by just recapping the gaps that you found. I think that gives us, Dr. Stedman and myself, an opportunity just to, okay, these are the gaps they found in task 2. It also cues in your evaluator, but you've got to first start, it's just like a little introduction, recapping your gaps. And then the first section is the importance of an action plan. This is from research. This is not about your school, but this is about research. And we would expect to see how many authors here or resources here.
I would say 3.
I think that's what we had said before.
Yeah.
You need 3 resources. Don't forget
a minimum of 3.
Yeah, don't forget your text. Ubben is a good resource, and you're also going to find other resources about the importance of developing a school improvement plan.
Okay, so that should be consistent with everybody. Dr. Revison, while I'm doing this, I did want to say this. People, we said it last week, the rules for APA have not changed. We honestly should not have to tell you to double space consistently throughout your work still. So please make us happy and everybody comply with that this time, okay? So you start out with that. Next, then we have a vision for a positive school environment. Now, the growth plan is you're looking at you've done the research, you've done the analysis in task 2. Now, it's your responsibility, working with your team, your PLC team. Now these are the gaps. what should our vision for a positive school environment look like? Now, in that, you're going to brainstorm ideas. This does include, you can make reference to, to researchers, and you can say, according to Hattie 2016 said this, and, and then you move on to say, this is something that as a team we recommend, based on this research and based on what Hattie says, this is what we recommend for our school as far as promoting a vision for positive school environment. And notice how they started it out: to increase teacher empowerment and leadership at this school. The consensus of my PLC was to formulate a strong vision based upon what we know is occurring at the school with research based. Notice that everything that I have just floundered trying to say, they said that in that first sentence. And then you look at your mission and your vision of the school, and it may be that, your mission and your vision may need to be looked at again. Maybe what you're saying, you don't see it happening. And that, you found that, when you were doing, you've got to be real with this. Be careful how you say it, but say it. That's the whole purpose of this. Sometimes you can't sugarcoat things sometimes, can you, Dr. Revis? You've got to tell it like it is. And the results are what they are. But again, be careful how you say it. Dr. Revis, we've got documentation to support those identified needs next.
Okay, and this section is just where you talk about your documentation. Well, your documentation is the results of your survey and your walkthrough data. And you talk about that, and you talk about the gaps again. And, um, that's the documentation you use to support your identified needs. And you can talk about, we saw lots of gaps, but these are the three that the school improvement team decided to work on from the teacher survey. And then from the walkthrough data, this is the one or two things we decided to work on. Now, don't just pull your gaps to connect to your improved growth plan from one source or the other. We want to see something from each source, each data source.
Right. And if your school is not using a walkthrough instrument, and that is not a best practice at your school, by all means, I would put that as my recommendation. Wouldn't you, Dr. Revis? That would be one of my recommendations, and why?
Yeah, that needs to be a strategy. Exactly.
Right. And remember, you're always looking for an opportunity to provide relevant staff development in this growth plan. But again, we've given you great examples here of what to do. And notice again, that goes back to your textbook, oven and all. The next, a list of strategic indicators of success. Again, you're going, what strategies are you going to put in place that indicates success? You want to make sure that, again, these are fidelity checks. You put these strategies in there. How do you know that what you're doing is actually working? And again, we'll talk about this more in the growth plan, but you talk about, you've got to look at, what is reasonable, what can be done now, your short term, what can be done, just a little bit down the road, and then, what are those things that it's important, but that there's no way that you can immediately handle that, but it needs to be a part of what the administration continues to look at as they are trying to move the pendulum for the school. So a list of strategic, and you just talk about it. And notice in here, re-administering the teacher empowerment survey at a time to see if there's a change. This is what it looked like when I did it. Now, at the end of such and such a period, I re-administer the same thing. What does it look like now? Those are examples. Again, some good examples in there. Dr. Revis?
And I always encourage you to start with the template and work your PLC through the template. And this is the the narrative part that describes what you put on the template. And so this section you've done before when you were doing your growth plan for the APSL. You identify specific short-term, long-term goals and objectives. There may be some things like if you were looking for a strategy to implement to increase teacher involvement in the hiring practices, that's probably going to be a long-term goal because you're not going to be hiring. Well, I guess you could, but hopefully you're not going to be hiring the bulk of your teachers until the summer or the early or late spring. So, that may be a long-term strategy.
Dr.
Or
Revis, I would, and again, I apologize. This one does not have the midterm goals, so it would either be short-term or long-term. I would think your short-term goals would be, what can you reasonably do from this point to the end of the school year? Your long-term would be, the team, your administrative team looking at this over the summer and beginning implementation in the fall of next school year with some things that are not reasonable enough to do now. Would you agree with that, Dr. Revis?
that would be a good way for you to think about it. Yes.
So,
And so you're just talking about those activities that you put in and which ones are going to be immediate and which ones are going to be more long term.
okay.
Now, in your narrative, you can refer to your growth plan, see figure whatever, but that does not mean you don't have to explain it narratively, okay?
Okay, right. Then, activities to address the identified goals and objectives. These are the things that you want permission or you want your administration to endorse to do. For instance, if there are no walkthroughs in your school, you want permission, and you want your administration to buy into the concept of putting a tool together, or devising a tool for walkthroughs. And you're gonna talk about what the research says about walkthroughs and the importance of them when you're doing your presentation. It's like a lawyer. You're building your case, and you're trying to you tell the story and you build a good case for it. But this is where your activities come in. Dr. Revis, I would say that would you say again a minimum of 5 activities in that growth plan? A
I
minimum.
would say yes.
And
I would say
they
a
must be
minimum.
diverse. They must be diverse.
You need to address at least 5 gaps.
Right.
And some of your gaps, may have 2 activities, 2 strategies.
Right. And notice how they've done here. The first activity, the second activity, blah, blah, blah. And, this is not comprehensive. It's just something to get you started. Notice what they've done here. And then in conclusion, my PLC concluded, discussion again. You are leading your PLC. This is the only time that you're working with your PLC for this whole evidence for the AAPTEL is during this time. Okay. Then a plan to communicate progress with vital stakeholders. Again, you identify who they are. Naturally, you know that your administration, when you say your administration are vital stakeholders, I mean, they've got to buy into this plan. What about the teachers you work with? Absolutely. And there may be other, stakeholders. You determine who are the vital stakeholders, but what is your plan? Now, part of the plan is that, you know, we're requiring you to do a presentation. But then again, what are other ways that you're going to get the message out there, you know, concerning the plan that the growth plan that you're developing? Other opportunities are, you know, again, it could be through staff development. Dr. Revis, wouldn't you say that they could actually unveil the plan on a more intimate basis during grade level PLC meetings?
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
those are
Yeah.
opportunities. So this
Yeah.
is what you talk about all that here. Then
This
again,
this
go ahead.
person really talked about the plan to present to their administration and to their
Right,
school improvement team.
right. So I
And
mean
which is
that is
fine,
vital.
but
Hmm.
you've got to get to more than just that. Or at least it's a plan. Now, whether you're actually going to be allowed to present to all your teachers in a grade level meeting or same course meeting, if you're in high school, but that would be a good plan.
Yes, it would. Okay, specific timeline of activities, Dr. Revis.
Well, that's just where you talk about, you list an activity and then you talk about a specific timeline. So it's directly linked there to your activity and whether it's a short term or a long term goal. Um, but you just talk about those timelines of when you want to make sure things are happening, your activities are taking place.
Dr. Revis, I think, Julia, I think it was you that mentioned that you found that in your survey results that your teachers, they felt there were a lot of things that they felt good about, but they felt like that they didn't have any voice in the hiring process. And Julia made the comment in her narrative work. She said that she could see why that might be a place. The grade level chairs are a part of that, but other teachers are not. So if that is a disconnect in the school, then I would see that that would be an opportunity not to just include just the grade level chairs, but give other people, as you can, opportunities to also be a part of that process. I picked up on that in Julia's work that she had done. But again, the specific timelines, you know when you go make it happen. Then your plan for stakeholder involvement and buy-in, and that really, um, you've got people, you got teachers on your staff, you've got some that have been there, um, they've been there for 30 years, and they're set in their ways, and they're like that tree, that's the old gospel song. I'm like a tree that's planted by the waters. I shall not be moved. Um, so you've got to figure out how you can move those people, get them involved in it, how you can get them buy-in, and that's a talent, Dr. Revis. That's a talent to be able to do that. And so you've got to look at all those personalities that you're working with, and you've got to say, I need 100% of these people on my team. What am I going to do? And again, you may not can do it all at one time because you can't eat the elephant all at one time, but you can eat that elephant one bite at a time. And I would look at, you know, sometimes you start out with what's the easiest because that gives you confidence as you're moving to some of the more challenging things. But don't let the challenges continue to be challenges. You've got to figure out ways to strategically get them involved.
And I just want to say on this part, you're right. This is really, as an administrator, where the rubber hits the road. Facilitating a group to consensus is difficult, but the most difficult thing you will do as a school leader is getting buy-in. And it takes time for some people. You know, changes not all doesn't come easy to some. They're different people. Some people will come on board very quickly, some will be stragglers. But this is the hard part of being a school leader is getting buy-in from your teachers and from your school community. It's just difficult.
Right. Um, Specific roles and responsibilities for this action plan, Dr. Revis.
Well, this again is where you just put down people who are responsible for making a specific activity happen and or monitoring a specific activity. And one thing that we don't want to see is your name through all this. They're very logical way people to be responsible for certain activities. You can't make the principal, um, you know, solicit input on the budget if he or she doesn't want to. And I think that's one of the things that, you have to think about who's going to make sure it's taking place and who's going to be responsible for making sure it's taking place.
And I want you to notice here, Dr. Revis, it says teacher responsibilities will include their full participation in personalized professional development as well as the implementation of effective differentiated instructional strategies. These are things that, these are, this is goes back to what we said before. This is getting them involved, engaged. And, many times you go to the one that may be most reluctant, more reserved, or whatever. And when you spend one-on-one time with them and you make them feel important, and you say, I need your help with so and so, many times that is the first step in helping move that person. So go back up here and pull some of those people for buy-in into these roles down here, to help with that as you can. Be strategic about it. Okay. Now, Dr. Revis, this is for the students, right? Formative and summative assessment.
Well, this is a teacher growth plan.
Right.
So you're not looking at summative student assessment. Remember in our growth plan before in the APSL, formative would be your fidelity checks. How do you know the adults in the building are doing what the plan says they should be doing? And so, you've got to put some strategies in there. If one of your activities is you're going to increase the frequency of teacher walkthroughs, then, a fidelity check would be what? Keeping up with how many walkthroughs are being conducted. And disaggregating that data, not just checking off the number of walkthroughs, but looking at that data that you receive from the walkthroughs and seeing, are we increasing our pervasiveness with the instructional strategies that are on the walkthrough and making sure that walkthrough data is looked at. Summative criteria. Again, I think a good one that this person pointed out was at the end of the year, they're going to re-administer their survey, their teacher leadership and empowerment survey to see if anything's improved. You could do that. There are lots of things, but this is about teacher leadership and growth, not student growth.
Right.
And so,
And Dr. Revison, as they're looking for teacher leadership and empowerment inside the classroom, as it relates to walkthroughs, instructional rounds, whatever you want to call it, remember, your goal is not to on that checklist. It's not to look at everything every time. Remember, let's say, for instance, when you're today, if you're at a school and you do word walls, Your goal is to see if when you go in each of those classrooms, you look at the word walls. And that's a checkpoint. You can find out, is it a problem or is it not a problem in my school? This time you may go in there, you may want to see, just observe to see how students are actively engaged with what the teacher's doing. And you only look at student engagement. So, you do your walkthroughs with a purpose. And it's not, that's what an evaluation is for, comprehensive purpose. Walkthroughs are for, that's what they are, walkthroughs. What do and have a purpose when you go in there, just zero in on something. And that you can accomplish much more when you go in with a purpose. Okay. Dr. Revis, if you pick up
Okay.
on that, please.
Your last section, your very last section, is extremely important. And this is where you talk about the presentation of your teacher empowerment and growth plan. Now, in your presentation, and this is the presentation that you're doing with your administrative team and your school improvement team, you have to have several things. You must talk about the best practice research. Okay? That must be in your presentation. You must talk about your results from your survey and from your walkthroughs. You must present those results in your presentation. You must talk about your gaps, the gaps that you and your PLC identified, and you must present your growth plan. Okay?
Dr. Revis, right here is where this presentation was shared with the administrative team. And then again, if you're allowed, this is where you would talk about with your school improvement team. This is where you would include that as well. Now, your principal may say, this is all I'm going to allow. And if that's the case, you need to just put it in there. The presentation was with with the administrative team only because the principal, well, however you're going to say it, that if they don't let you, you can't help it.
Now, what I would always suggest doing, and Dr. Stedman, you tell me do you want the slides, the slide deck to the presentation in the body of the text, or do you want it as an appendix entry?
I would say, see, I think it becomes too much there. I would put it in the appendix entry, and just
Okay.
see.
But be sure you note that in your narrative. See appendix whatever for the slide deck.
And remember,
Presentation.
the appendices also must show your agenda, everything that you've done with your PLC. That's vitally important as well. So make sure you don't forget that. You need to make sure with this presentation that every I is dotted and every T is crossed. And again, the action plan is the same thing. You use this, don't make any changes. Everything must be addressed with your specific activities, a minimum of 5, and every blank, everything must be filled in. Don't leave anything blank. And again, this is just another way of, and like Dr. Reva said, putting the puzzle together here makes your narrative work so much easier. So if you decide to do that.
And Dr. Stedman, I think this person had the wrong name for the title of this. It should be action plan for, no, what is it? Teacher and Leadership and Empowerment Growth Plan.
Right.
Teacher Leadership and Empowerment Growth Plan.
Right. Okay.
And it's the same template that you've used before in the AAPTEL. And
Okay,
that should be the last thing that's in task 3.
right.
You
Let me
graduate.
let me stop share. Okay. Now I know we went over this last week, but we slowed down this week on purpose. Does everybody understand, you know, what the next week and a half should look like to get this to us by not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday at the latest? If you get it done before, by all means, go ahead and get it to us. That gives us time to 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 to, to read it early and to go ahead and give you feedback on it. But no later than next Wednesday. It's due, and we'll talk about this again next Tuesday night. But by next Tuesday night, you should be 99% through if you're not through, to get it to us on, by Wednesday.
Hmm.
Everybody good? Everybody, you're mighty quiet tonight. Okay.
They're old experts at this point
I
on
know,
this.
and they should be, Dr. Revis. Okay, Bobby, you have a question?
Excuse me. Well, good evening, and Dr. Rivers, good luck on your election.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. But I just want to say, and talking to my principal about the presentation, my principal is not the biggest fan of any type recordings. And he has made that kind of explicitly clear.
And Bobby, if that's the case, I know Avery very well. And he's one of those trees by the waters that can't be moved sometime. But if that's the case, you just say that in your narrative work, that he preferred not to have it recorded.
Yes, sir.
And that's all you can do.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Casey?
Just to that end, I'm gonna do what I did last time because my principal is also not a big fan of recording. I'm gonna go ahead and present live anyway, and then go back and record everything with Screencastify. So that way, I still have a recording of me presenting, just not necessarily live. But then I can also share it later,
Okay.
and it's not like if that's okay.
And that
I didn't know if
works.
that anybody else.
Yeah, I just don't
might
want
want that
anybody
idea.
to get in trouble. So don't get yourself in trouble. It's highly recommended. But again, you don't want to, don't say you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. So, do what you need to do. Okay. Other questions? Okay, we will go ahead and next week we'll go ahead and talk about task 4. You know what to do already, but we'll just quickly go over that. We'll talk about the case study and go over the requirements of that. Dr. Revis will go ahead and emphasize the competency work that still remains to be done. We've got to talk to them about we'll talk about task stream. We'll talk about those other requirements next week, and so they'll have everything pretty much laid out. And so when we come back on the 14th, week 14, we'll just kind of review everything. And have some other things that we'll talk about. And then week 15 is actually on that Monday, and that will be the town hall where Dr. Stone pulls everybody back together again. And I tell you what, on the 14th, Dr. Revis, we'll give them a preview of 603. I will have some stuff ready, and we can do, because what I would recommend you do, and I know you don't want to hear this now, but after this is all over with and you have some there's some things that we can recommend that will help you over the Christmas holidays when you are sitting around or whatever, that will help you get started looking at some stuff so you won't be behind. Okay. Okay.
And the thing is, what we're trying to do is get all your major assignments in before Thanksgiving,
Right.
so that all you've got to do is, if you're behind or need to tweak, one of those last things, maybe something in your folio or your log needs to be finished up, all that's going to be behind you. And you're ready to start focusing on your next semester. We want to give you a jump start. And that's just because, guys, nobody's gonna lead you through this evidence work like what we have. You're gonna see much more content and less support on the evidence work. So we want to get you a head start. Okay?
You'll have some good people, but
Yes.
and you might, I promise you, you won't, you might not say it now. You might say, I'm ready to get rid of Dr. Stedman and Dr. Revis. But when you get to 603, you're going to look back and you're going to say, woo, I miss Dr. Stedman and Dr. Revis. But we're a phone call away if you ever just need to, where's Bobby? If I need to talk you off the ledge, we're a phone call away still. Okay. But anyway, we're putting the cart before the horse. And Stuart, your cat has entertained us. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I think all the people like that. So that brought some smiles at the end. I think we've done it, Dr. Revis.
I think this is it.
I think you've done it. I think you're ready. And we didn't keep you for 2 hours tonight either.
Mhm.
You can go look at the election results tonight. Okay. Okay, and pray for our country. That's what we need to do.
Good night,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night,
Have a good
everybody.
week.
Okay.